think we are seeing the breakdown of a lot of very large
Working in corporate, try not to be a big back greedy goblin is so difficult. What do you mean?
New think tank report claims that inflation issues were...
The reason I quit my corporate job, honestly, was because I woke up one day and...
One thing I've underestimated about what corporate life has taught me is how much is...
Working in corporate, try not to be a big back greedy goblin is so difficult. What do you mean it's 11 o'clock, I've got chocolate cake? 12 o'clock, who wants a shortbread? 1 o'clock, oh, the boardroom meeting's got leftovers. There's pizza in the kitchen. 2 o'clock now, who wants something from the shop? 3 o'clock, oh, Mel's maple matcha, who's down? 4 o'clock, oh, there's some sweets in the sweet tin. Do you want a quality street? Do you want a celebration? I'm celebrating nothing! I just want to be skinny. Oh, it's winter. It's 7 days in. You're beating me already. 5 o'clock. Who wants a tea cake for a ride home? I don't need anything for the ride home. I'm trying to get the jawline back up. I've had enough, simply. I can't do it. The self-control. And today I just have a shortbread. But I wanted all of it. I can't lie. I'm not going to lie to you, mate, yeah? I'm not going to lie to you. It's difficult out here. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, how dare you? How dare you tempt me? Every hour on the dot. No, how greedy. Yeah.
1/3 of all American companies listed on the stock exchanges were engaging in price gouging, and that was driving inflation. They specifically call out giant energy companies, mining companies, and monopolistic food companies, telecommunications companies, technology companies, and banking companies. They note that ExxonMobil, for example, this is just one example. The profits, prior to their average profits were around $20 billion a year. It was 18.9, before the pandemic. It went to $66 billion last year. Shell, normal profit, $20 billion, went to $55 billion. Archer Daniels Midland, the largest food company in America, their average profit, $1.7 billion, rose to $4 billion, or previous profit. Kraft Heinz, another one of the very largest food companies in America, their $333 million profit rose to $2.3 billion. What is doing this? Monopolistic market clout. This all goes back to neoliberalism, what I was talking about in the opening segment. This thing that Margaret Thatcher imposed on the United Kingdom in 1978. Jimmy Carter, put his toe in the water in 79, deregulating the railroads and the trucking industry. And then Ronald Reagan just embraced full hog and brought to America in 1981. And, allowing big companies to become massive companies and wiping out the small companies. America used to be, peppered with small companies. There used to be millions of small local companies. Your local downtowns used to be all small local companies. Your malls used to be small local companies. It might be anchored by a national chain like Sears or something like that, but they were mostly local companies. No more. In fact, they note that the global GDP had market power not risen. In other words, had these companies not had monopoly power, had they not driven their competitors out of business, and they just have an absolute hands around our throats in terms of their ability to set prices because we have no place else to go. Had that not happened, GDP would have risen by 8% more. Or another way of putting that is that an 8% increase in spending that would have been part of an increase in GDP ended up entirely in the coffers, in the money bins of these giant corporations and their billionaire stockholders and CEOs. And by the way, kudos to the Biden administration. They actually are starting to try to break up some of these companies. They're suing Google right now. It's getting almost no publicity in the press outside of the Financial Times, the economic press. But the Biden administration is going after these big companies, and they're blocking some of these big mergers. They're looking right now at blocking the merger between JetBlue and Spirit, I think. It's one of the other super discount airlines. And good on them. We need more of this.
New think tank report claims that inflation issues were driven largely by corporate greed. The report says resounding evidence shows companies continue to keep prices high even as their inflationary costs drop. The report, compiled by the Progressive Groundwork Collective think tank, found corporate profits accounted for about 50% of inflation during last year's second and third quarters. Profits drove just 11% of price growth in the 40 years prior to the pandemic, according to the report. Prices for consumers rose by 3.4% over the past year, but input costs for producers increased by just 1%, according to the author's calculations, which was based on data from the Bureau of Economic Analysis and National Income and Products Accounts. There is some good news. The Biden administration has taken steps to strengthen supply chains. Joe Biden recently called on corporations to stop gouging consumers as input costs fall. Picante and Weber called for stronger action, pointing to other nations with forms of price control in place. All I have to say is, we been knew that. I mean, we could have told them that. The people who work, who get gouged every day, we see the rising cost of inflation. Groceries cost like $300 for 2 weeks of groceries when they used to cost like $100. Obviously, we can feel it in our pockets that it's going up, but our pay ain't going up. It's not coinciding, and it's not working out, and the math is not mathing. So all I want to know is, what is going to be done about this? These greedy companies need to be held accountable. They can't sit here and hoard the wealth of the world and while they let everyone else starve.
I think we are seeing the breakdown of a lot of very large corporations because the continual push for more revenue and continual growth they're hitting walls that they haven't hit before. And they're just being reckless with how they are pushing those limits. And it's especially tone deaf at a time when so many people are struggling to afford the necessities of life. And a good example of that is, of course, what's going on with Netflix right now. It feels like it wasn't too long ago that they were hiking their prices up. And the way that they kind of tricked you into being okay with that was saying you can share the logins with your friends and family. And so people did. They went for the highest tier, and then now they're saying that no, it has to all be in your house. I think a lot of people are just going to cancel their subscription altogether, say big F you to them, and that's totally justified. For those who still really want to have Netflix, they have a different decision. It's not just keep paying the same amount or cancel altogether. Pull up the current plans for Canada. If you share your Netflix with other people, you likely have the premium. You can have up to 4 screens, and it's $20.99 a month in Canada. You can't share your login with anyone else. Even if they could bring their phone or their computer to your house to log in on your Wi-Fi, they can't bring their actual smart TV from their house into your house. If they're logging into someone else's Netflix on their TV, they're going to have to get their own account or say bye to Netflix. Right away, every single person who has a Netflix account is going to be downgrading to either the basic or the standard packages. Unless you have a house with a whole bunch of kids and everyone has Netflix in their rooms, then maybe 4 screens would work. But you don't need 4 screens. I don't see that being a very common thing. In our house, we watch it together and never simultaneously, even 2 screens. It's always just one. We do share with family members, but if they're no longer going to be allowed to log in, we will drop right down to the basic plan, and they're going to lose half their revenue anyway. And I want to just cancel the whole thing, but there's a few shows my husband wants to keep watching. So it'll be interesting. They didn't really think this one through because they're going to lose revenue either way. And not to mention the public perception of this whole thing. So anyway, we shall see, I guess. Eat the rich.
I went ahead and made a list of all the different types of people that are going to have the absolutely worst time in corporate. Let's get into it. Number 1, if you are neurodivergent, let me tell you that corporate America is not designed for you, and it is going to be some of the worst experiences you've ever had in your life, except for maybe your own upbringing. Let's take being autistic, for example. Being autistic is basically fundamentally being all of the qualities that corporate America is actively trying to beat out of people. For instance, you are incredibly honest. They don't want that shit. They don't want honest people. They want people that are going to live the lie. If you are not going to live the lie, not only are you going to have a hard time with the leadership and the people in charge of the environment that you're in, you are going to get it from all angles. Autistic people are also very, very good at pattern recognition, so you're going to be able to look across the organization and see at a high level what is wrong with the company and what needs to be improved. And that is going to get you into so much trouble. Next, my ADHD guys and girlies. Lord help us. Lord help us in our 9-to-5s. If there was something that didn't go together more than an ADHD person and a 9-to-5, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
What annoys me about South African corporate greed and capitalism is that it aspires to be like America and those Western countries, but it doesn't want to offer the same type of innovation. Like it just wants to exploit without offering any tangible product and services that at least justify the capitalism. Like in America, you have hyper capitalism. You have like Netflix that has very unfair practices towards artists. You have like Apple, which literally uses child laborers in like China or something. And that's the corporate greed, and they overcharge those things. But at least they're offering something of value. You're like, oh, this product is dope, even though it's very unethical and we should not be doing this. But at least there's something. Well, else in South Africa, it's corporate greed, but there's nothing being invented. Like there's literally nothing. All you have in our corporate greed is DSTV wanting you to pay TV license when like there's nothing that they're offering you. Like TV license is always a bad idea. It's exploitative, but give me something so that I'm like, you want me to pay, and then I give you, and I understand what it's unfair. You're overcharging me, but at least there's something you're offering. Where are the apps, like the movie apps? Like I feel like the movie industry is dying because we don't have streaming platforms to house, like we don't have the infrastructure to house those new movies. If someone made a movie now, where would it go? Like Showmax, they're not even putting effort. Like it's such a bad interface. Like where's like they greedy, all the billionaires just want to build mines. Like Abu Ramaphosa just want to hide money under the couch. Why not use that greed to be like, okay, I want to do money laundering. Let me create like a PayPal, like a South African PayPal where I can do money without being tracked. And like innovate, be greedy but innovate. Like they just want money, but there's nothing that they're offering that justifies that capitalism, where we can say, yo, you know what, they have their foot on our necks, but at least we can see that there's something in society that it's offering, even though it's bad for human like nature, it's bad for the soul of the nation. Well, they just want to exploit, but there's nothing that they're offering. We still live in the Stone Ages.
Corporate America pisses me off kind of every single fucking day, if I'm honest, but today I'm really extra annoyed. Today I'm on a call and we're talking about budgets and how, well, there really are no budgets. They're just getting cut year after year, and that we have to come up with new creative ways of getting our work done that won't be as expensive. If that was truly the only way the company could be successful, that all these teams had to come up with new ways of doing work, sure, I get it. But at the end of the day, that's not the case. Because when you work for a public company, you have access to what pretty much everyone in the C-suite is making. Let me tell you, every time that we're being told, oh, get more creative, budgets are getting cut, their salaries are not getting cut. In fact, somehow they're going up. It turns out you're not really supposed to say that in a meeting. God forbid you even think of insulting the people at the top. Not even insulting, but just kind of calling it out for what it is. People get so uncomfortable. I'm not going to sit here, stress myself out, try to work all these hours, come up with new ways how to save money, do X, Y, Z, and only to see that the people at the top literally bought what? Another mansion? Because they ended up making more money off the money that we saved. And are our salaries going up? Fuck no. There's no money for that. Make it make sense.
You know, it really pisses me off when businesses and corporations fuck over people because they can't really do anything about it. I'm not sure if this is happening to a lot of people all across the country. I'm not sure if this is just in Texas. I'm not sure if this is just this company, but I am furious. So my dad, he has lived in the same house for about 10 years. It's his house, and then 10 years ago, he signed up with Reliant Energy. And at the time, they had a contract that said, like, if you sign up, it is 8 cents per kilowatt hour, and as long as you don't break the contract, your price is locked in. My dad does not like change. He's a boomer. He has stayed with the same company. He has never been one to like, oh, let me shop around. Like, no, he stayed faithfully with Reliant up until this day. So last week he told me that he got an email from Reliant that said, sorry to see you go. And he was confused. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not going anywhere. He called and he spoke to someone and he's like, what's going on? Like, why is my electricity being canceled? And they said, oh, well, somebody gave your address and said that they're moving, so we're going to switch the account to their name. And he was like, do you not ask for proof? Like, why are you just taking this person's word for it? And they're like, oh, maybe it was a mistake. Like, I'm sorry. We'll investigate. We will put a flag on your account, yada, 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 whatever. So then yesterday in the morning, he calls again. He calls Reliant. He says, what is going on with that situation? Because I do not want my electricity disconnected. Someone made a mistake. And the person that he spoke to said, yes, like, we already know there's a flag on your account. Your electricity is not going to be disconnected. We are doing an investigation, blah, blah, blah. Tell me why 2 hours later, his electricity is disconnected. So, of course, my dad is freaking out. He calls them. They say, oh, well, someone's moving to your address. Like the exact same thing. And he's like, no, I called you. I told you that there is no one moving. I live here. I'm not moving. I'm not going anywhere. And they said, okay, well, we'll go ahead and reconnect for a fee. And we are going to raise your price to 19 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's like 2.5 times the rate that he was before. And that was it. No other option. No, I'm sorry. We made a mistake. We're going to reconnect. And my dad was without electricity for like 12 hours. But I cannot believe that a company I honestly don't even believe that someone gave their address. I think that they were like, hey, he's not paying us enough and we're going to cancel his contract and then put him into a new contract. So if there's anything that I can do and like, please let me know. If this is happening a lot, like, I want to know because I want to know how to help him. I am like 10 out of 10 mad for him. He's older. His income is not increasing. As a matter of fact, he just got out of the hospital, so he was missing some work. My dad should be retired, but nobody can retire now. Like, it's not possible. So if there's anything that you think that I can do to help him, please let me know.
I'm so glad I am out of the 9 till 5. The lack of empathy will never cease to astound me amongst corporate institutions. I've just heard a story from somebody in my life who has just explained to me that they mentioned the fact that they were struggling with their mental health, and one of their colleagues literally said, I don't care. Like, it doesn't, that's not acceptable to me. you know, that's not an excuse, basically. And the thing is, this isn't even the first time I've heard of stuff like this. Like, I remember literally working my ass off for this one job after I finished uni, and I was so burnt out. He micromanaged, like my boss micromanaged to shit. Like, he was so you know, unempathetic, no room for mental health. And by the way, this was like a CBD wellness, mental health focused brand, and he could not be further from somebody who had compassion and somebody who cared about people's mental health, because I would spend most days literally almost at the brink of tears every day, overworked, overstimulated, and constantly feeling like I wasn't good enough. Like, he constantly reminded me of what I wasn't doing and that I hadn't achieved what he had anticipated in his mind. I remember literally one particular day I was really unwell. I said I'm really unwell, and he basically like pushed me into working at home that day, even though I said I was really unwell and mentally drained. Like, he didn't give a fuck. And this is not the first time that, you know, the first job I ever got out of corporate, out of uni, was a corporate job, and by the end of it, I was threatened to not be paid for my work because the owner got so upset with how much responsibility she had given me, to the point where she acknowledged, wait a minute, I'm actually creating the brand, I'm actually building it up, and instead of her, you know, being able to take the credit, she couldn't. So she got so like cross with me over this one shoot I did, which was probably the best shoot I've ever done for that brand, the best shoot that brand's ever experienced. And she got annoyed with me over the most petty reasons, was actually low-key fatphobic to one of the models, and threatened to not pay me because I didn't do what she said, even though she literally said, you can control it, you can plan the shoot. You know, final workplace or final corporate work that I had, final corporate job that I had was, you know, by the end of it, they literally let me go. I arrived at 9 and left at 9:15, and they managed to blame their inability to provide work for me in my role as some kind of inadequacy on my end. The corporate gaslighting, the corporate lack of empathy is insane. And this is just not even like, this is just my experience. I know so many experiences of people that have worked in corporate where there's just been a sheer lack of empathy. You know, they've blamed it on the employee rather than, for example, they don't need as many people, they've overhired, and they'll blame it on that person's performance. Like, the gaslighting is wild. And to people who are literally coming straight out of uni and getting a job, they don't know any better. They don't know what corporate's like. They don't have the experience to understand that corporations will gaslight, corporations will push your limits, corporations will expect well above what you can provide on a very low salary, because they know that you don't know any better. So you'll believe them, and you'll believe that you're not good enough, you're inadequate, and that, you know, everything's your fault, but it's fucking not. Like, this is why I just do not agree with corporate work, certainly in the UK, because there is just no empathy, there's no compassion, there's no room for mental health, there's no room for, or very little room, generally speaking, obviously there's going to be exceptions, but there's very little room for human life and human experience. And, you know, this whole thing about being nervous to go into work on Monday, on the Sunday, you're nervous on the Sunday to go to work on Monday. It's just insane. Like, we shouldn't be living like this. We shouldn't be like living in fear of, you know, making money for ourselves in order to survive. It's absolutely ludicrous. You know, it's just this energy of like work, you know, get as much out of these people as possible, extract as much energy, as much time, as much capacity, and then give absolutely nothing back. People want more than this now. People are more motivated by things outside of money now. And seeing as we're not getting enough money anyway to survive, we've got to be motivated by more than just money, because money is no longer good enough. So we have to be motivated by culture. We have to be motivated by empathy. We have to be motivated by things that make our daily working lives enjoyable and pleasant, and not something that we want to dread.